I look at the entire scope of this thing as we discuss the legacy and the career, the run of CM Punk in AEW, because as of right now, it looks like it's come to a close. This is, since its inception, not that long ago, I would say the biggest This Week in CM Punk segment that we've ever done. So let's jump in the DeLorean and let's go back in time to August 20th, 2021. The first dance, it was mere months after fans started regularly being let into arenas at full capacity again after the pandemic. And in an extremely expected but incredibly well-received, surprised, unannounced moment, CM Punk enters AEW for the first time. And more importantly, returns to the world of professional wrestling for the first time since he left the WWE right after the 2014, I want to say, Royal Rumble. 7 years out the game. And I think it's important to remember that as you look at the history where we were, only 2 years ago in August of 2021, everybody felt this void. There was this sort of never getting to finish what was started with CM Punk in the world of professional wrestling. He was missed. When CM Punk walked out in Chicago, it was one of the top reactions in the history of professional wrestling in general. It was the biggest single moment that AEW ever had up until that point, and in my opinion, the biggest single moment they've ever had, period. Fans rejoiced everywhere. The t-shirt became an instant hot seller. You remember CM Punk Crying Guy? CM Punk Crying Guy became a meme, and people defended him. Anytime somebody would make fun of CM Punk is back, Crying Guy, dozens of fans would come to this dude's aid and be like, that's called passion, my friend. That's called 7 years of waiting for your favorite superstar to finally make his return. I would love to talk to a crying CM Punk fan now and just see how he feels about the way everything turned out. CM Punk was wearing a hoodie that was adorned with the name of his dog, Larry, on the side of his chest. And he came to the ring and he looked happy. He looked like he was enjoying the reaction that he was getting. He did a crowd dive into the audience on his way to the ring. And the first segment of that show, which was not the first episode of Rampage, but one of the early episodes of Rampage, was just the entrance. Because you remember, there was all this speculation. While it was very much looking like this is what was happening, and while they sold out the United Center because most of the people buying tickets, and when I say most, I mean the vast majority of the people buying tickets, thought that this would be CM Punk's return to professional wrestling, they hadn't announced it. So there was always the chance that it wasn't going to happen, but it really did happen. Cult of Personality came on, that their own version of the logo with the X'd out hands. It was all back, and CM Punk was finally returning. He was showered with CM Punk chants, and he let the audience know, I ain't going anywhere. He said, I have a lot to say. And I'm not going to say it all tonight, but that's okay because we have time. We have Wednesday. We have Friday. We have 4 pay-per-views a year to get it all off our chest because I ain't going anywhere. I don't think he saw where this was going either. None of us did. He bought everybody in the audience ice cream bars. Everybody was able to leave the building with a free CM Punk ice cream bar, obviously a reference to the Pipe Bomb promo from WWE. And the wrappers for those ice cream bars ended up going on eBay for like hundreds of dollars after it happened. He told the audience, this was his return to professional wrestling, something that he had exited when he left Ring of Honor in 2005. He let the audience know that when he was in Ring of Honor, it was very difficult to leave because that was home. And he knew that the place that he was going, it was going to be tough for someone like him to survive. But that while he left professional wrestling in 2005, August 20th, 2021 was when he returned to professional wrestling. He started wrestling right away. He went to All Out 2021. By the way, All Out is just becoming synonymous with CM Punk in terms of chapter markers. At All Out 2021, he beat Darby Allin. Darby was the first sort of young talent that CM Punk mentioned in his return promo. Darby and Sting were up in the stands watching CM Punk. And Punk and Darby had Punk's first professional wrestling match back at All Out. Of course, with CM Punk winning, but I guess the philosophy being that Darby didn't have to go over to get over. The first storyline that CM Punk took part in was with Eddie Kingston. Eddie Kingston and CM Punk was the first real kind of rivalry that happened in the return career of CM Punk, and that was the moment that like things started to go, I wonder if there is a little tension. You know, you started to get the feeling that maybe, and who knew? You didn't know if this was storyline or if this was real life. But if you were around in the early 2000s, when the NWO was coming into WWE, the storyline was that Vince McMahon was going to inject poison, a lethal dose of poison, into his creation to destroy it. And he was going to bring back the NWO. But the reality was, you read in every dirt sheet that a lot of the talent didn't want Hogan, Hall, and Nash getting into the locker room, that the locker room was in a good place. And the real poison that those guys had at that point a reputation for being, in terms of just being political monsters behind the scenes, was something that a lot of superstars apparently in a very real life way didn't want. Now that worked out fine for that locker room. The NWO angle wasn't great, but the locker room survived it. You started to get the feeling that that was either happening in AEW or they wanted you to believe it was happening in AEW, because the promo battles that happened between Eddie Kingston and CM Punk were Eddie Kingston pointing out that CM Punk didn't believe in him, and CM Punk, throwing his friends under the bus, saying it wasn't just him, it was Danielson, it was everybody else who thought that Eddie Kingston didn't work up to his full potential. And that's when Eddie Kingston got right in CM Punk's face and said, I'm going to tell you what everybody backstage is afraid to tell you. Nobody wants you here. And it was like, whoa, we hadn't heard this before, right? CM Punk ends up beating Eddie Kingston, and then went on to have the best rivalry that he had, the best storyline that he had in AEW, and arguably the best one that MJF has had with MJF. You could probably argue that whatever's going on with Adam Cole right now is surpassing what MJF did with CM Punk, but the MJF CM Punk story was magic. You know, it was the story, ironically, of Punk feeling like this young kid who hadn't done much in the industry was not respectful to CM Punk's legacy. At one point, CM Punk said that MJF stood for jealous fan, my jealous fan, maybe he said. Saying that MJF was just a CM Punk fan. They brought out the photo of MJF meeting CM Punk at an autograph signing. They went all the way. At one point, CM Punk thought that he had set MJF straight. MJF gave him a hug, but only to give him a low blow. This was when MJF really became evil MJF. In fact, it's the first time that MJF really became the devil. Borrowing. So much was borrowed from CM Punk's history in Ring of Honor. And there was almost this silent passing of the torch where that sort of most controversial, character who through his stories is going to get the entire industry talking, whether or not you put the spotlight him or not, that was CM Punk at the end of that Ring of Honor run is now MJF. Because when MJF put CM Punk down, he used the line that CM Punk used in Ring of Honor that came from The Usual Suspects, which is the greatest trick the devil ever pulled was making you forget that he existed. And then he screamed at CM Punk that I'm going to prove to you that I'm the devil himself. MJF was able to get CM Punk's first loss. MJF was the first person in AEW to actually score a victory over CM Punk. Of course, the story climaxed with CM Punk, or we thought anyway, with CM Punk getting his victory back in a now classic dog collar match, which was just a bloody affair where CM Punk brought back his Ring of Honor shorts, the basketball shorts, and entrance for the very first time. When you go back now and you look at some of that MJF CM Punk stuff, it really holds up. Absolutely classic. That is peak CM Punk in AEW. In May of 2022 at Double or Nothing, CM Punk would beat Adam Page for the AEW Championship. So CM Punk, after conquering MJF, would announce that he was in AEW to become the champion. However, before the Summer of Punk, part 2 or 3 at this point, I don't know, before the 2022 Summer of Punk was able to really begin, CM Punk announced that he had a foot injury and he was not going to be able to defend his title. Apparently, he had gotten the injury while celebrating his championship victory on the Dynamite that was after Double or Nothing. So he won the title, and then he was jumping up and down because he won it, and he broke his foot. Apparently, that's how it all went down. While he was gone, Jon Moxley is crowned the interim champion, right? And this is where stuff starts to get real quirky. CM Punk returns at the end of the summer. He still has his belt, and Jon Moxley has his title as the interim champion of AEW. And when Punk returned, he got in the ring, and he said, I've got a couple of things to do, some important, some less important. So let's start with the less important. I want to offer somebody a rematch right now. And he called out Adam Page. He called out Adam Page. The commentators didn't know what to make of it. They said they didn't even know if Adam Page was in the building. And CM Punk, when Adam Page doesn't respond to the challenge at all, no music is played, no nothing. The crowd boos. CM Punk calls him a coward and then says, let's actually move on to important stuff, and starts talking about Jon Moxley. Now, apparently, the road to Adam Page versus CM Punk had gotten far more ugly than any of us had realized. If you go back and watch CM Punk versus Adam Page when CM Punk wins the title, it seems like it's just two people doing business. But apparently resentments had been building and building and building. And when CM Punk went home with that injury, those resentments, not only did they not go anywhere, but they grew because CM Punk felt like there was a lack of an apology. In fact, he even referenced in the promo where he called out Adam Page that here's a little advice, another shot at Adam Page, who had previously said he didn't want advice from older people, that he more valued the trial and error way of doing things. He said something to the effect of, the apology has to be as loud as the offense was. And he moves on. And none of us really knew what he was talking about. But as time goes on, number one, you find out that that was not a scripted part of the show. CM Punk calling out Adam Page was not something that was supposed to happen. It was not a part of AEW Dynamite. The reason Adam Page didn't respond and look like a coward was because nobody had any idea that CM Punk was going to call this guy out. So he, did everything that he could in his moment to torpedo Adam Page in fans' eyes. So apparently, in the build-up to CM Punk versus Adam Page, the tension that was existing in those promos was more real than any of us realized. At one point, CM Punk was saying, "For me, this is just business. I don't know why it's personal for you." Adam Page said it was personal. Adam Page, and I guess this was the major offense, said that CM Punk talks about workers' rights, but ever since showing up in AEW, his actions have proven otherwise, which I suppose was a veiled shot at rumors that CM Punk was accused of getting Colt Cabana taken off of AEW television. A rumor that CM Punk later denied, but I guess Adam Page was deciding to reference the rumor. I think most fans at home, at least at first, didn't get that, but Punk got it loud and clear because he talked about making veiled references in that promo. Adam Page also said that this was the first time that he would not just be defending the AEW championship against CM Punk, but he would be defending AEW from CM Punk. Now, looking back, and I remember even watching this thing, the whole buildup was very, very strange because if things were going as planned, the road here would be for CM Punk to turn heel. I don't know, like there'd be no reason to add all of this sort of, you are what AEW shouldn't be. You don't support your fellow wrestlers. You're lying when you say the things that you're saying. And the locker room, has to be defended against you. If a heel is saying this to you, then we can assume the heel is lying. If a babyface is saying this to you, well, then what is the story that we're telling here? That is the story of everything after MJF and CM Punk. There's one story going on in front of the camera, and there's one story going on behind the camera. And after his return, it never gets on the right page. The more we hear about this, the more it recontextualizes everything that was going on with CM Punk before Adam Page. I keep saying Adam Page. It recontextualizes his rivalry with Eddie Kingston. The fact that it was based around Punk and his friends not thinking Eddie Kingston was doing things the right way. Well, now that makes Punk look like a villain, like a bully. The fact that he was wanting respect from MJF because he was a veteran and saying, MJF, you can't lace my boots because you were a fan of mine. Now we've recontextualized that and he's coming across like a villain. The whole thing started to get really, really weird. We also find out that apparently Punk is of the belief that Adam Page and his friends and the Young Bucks and whoever are leaking stories about Punk that don't make Punk look good to dirt sheets. The reason we find that out is because of what happens next. So Punk would go to Dynamite before All Out of 2022 and lose to Jon Moxley in a squash. Jon Moxley is then declared the undisputed AEW champion, and CM Punk wonders if he's going to be able to compete at all. A week later, Ace Steel gets CM Punk all revved up again. CM Punk signs his name on a contract. We go to All Out with CM Punk getting his rematch. CM Punk is able to triumphantly face Jon Moxley and once again win the AEW World Championship. This is a really significant night in the history of AEW and probably the best ending to an AEW pay-per-view since we got the debuts of Bryan Danielson and Adam Cole. Because at this All Out, not only does Punk get this crowning moment, but a mystery man had won the casino ladder match, which had allowed this mystery man a poker chip that he could cash in for an opportunity at the AEW championship whenever he wanted. As CM Punk stands in the ring holding the title above his head, that masked man who won the poker chip comes out, takes the mask off, and it's MJF. MJF, a superstar who for the last 3 months had been gone from AEW in a situation that was somewhere between a work and a shoot, and one that still to this day is unclear how much of it was true and how much of it is storyline. But it all worked its way into the storyline, unlike so much of what was happening with Punk. And I'll never forget recording that podcast. If you go back and you listen to that podcast, it's like 2 shows. It was one of the great times. This is what you want when you're running a wrestling promotion, that all you want to do is talk about this great angle at the end of a pay-per-view and what's going to happen. And the fact that we are going towards the next chapter in arguably AEW's best rivalry they've ever done, CM Punk versus MJF. And as I'm recording this podcast and talking about all this stuff that's going on, I hit stop on the recorder. I remember I was sitting in a hotel in Orlando Airport. I guess NXT was on that night as well. And I look at the Discord that all the Patreon members are on. And they go, "Bro, are you watching this press conference?" And I went, "What?" And unbeknownst to me, that as big as the ending to All Out was, there was an even bigger deal happening at this press conference, at the media scrum. New AEW World Champion CM Punk would sit next to Tony Khan with the AEW title. He'd eat a muffin. And instead of talking about MJF at all, he would go on arguably the most infamous rant at this point in the history of professional wrestling, I would say, when he says that he's old, he's tired, and he works with children. And he puts Colt Cabana on blast. And he puts all the rumors of him holding Colt Cabana down on blast. And he brings up all kinds of stuff about Colt Cabana, his mother, his bank account, a ton of crazy stuff. Then he starts going into what's happened with the Elite, with Hangman Adam Page and the problem that he has with Hangman going out and publicly talking about not taking advice, but also more so about the fact that the Elite guys are working against him, that he's responsible in his mind for the only $1 million gate that this company has ever had. And he's got people in this company that are working against him. And as he's just laying this all out there, the owner of the company, Tony Khan, is just sitting next to him in a state of, I don't know. I would love to talk to him one day about what kind of state he was in that moment. After the media scrum, or the CM Punk part of the media scrum, apparently the Elite go to see CM Punk in his dressing room to confront what's been said. A brawl breaks out. That date, instead of being remembered for All Out, is only remembered for Brawl Out. The new AEW champion, CM Punk, and the new Trios champions, the Elite, Kenny Omega and the Young Bucks, are all taken off television until further notice. We find out later CM Punk had some kind of bicep injury. And the next night on Dynamite, Tony Khan, after just creating an interim title because CM Punk was injured, now has to announce that the Trios and the AEW World title are vacated because of events that have to be investigated. And he can't say much more than that. Now, on that night, MJF and Jon Moxley came out and together had one of the great promos in AEW, where they basically were saying, we're putting the company on our backs now because of the destruction that's going on in this locker room. A couple of months later, 2, 3, 4 months, I don't know, the Elite do end up coming back on television. And 10 months after the initial event, the first episode of a new television show called AEW Collision is announced. First, it's not announced who's going to be on the show. It's not announced where the first taping is taking place, but when we can finally lock it down, it is announced that the first taping is going to take place live from the United Center in Chicago, and CM Punk will be on the show. So 10 months after Brawl Out, CM Punk makes his return to AEW, and there's all these rumors about the Saturday show existing so that there can be a space where the Elite and CM Punk do not have to mix at all. CM Punk can be on Collision, and those that are cool with CM Punk can be on Collision with him, and those that are not cool with CM Punk, you can stick on Dynamite, and we'll just function that way. And first episode of Collision, CM Punk gets a mic, and he's got to say something, right? I mean, the first promo on the first episode of Collision is excellent. Excellent. CM Punk's return promo, just like his original promo. Excellent. He acknowledges the problem. He talks about how soft some of the people are in the AEW locker room, a shot right across the bow, and then moves forward. And the main event is, I want to say it's Samoa Joe and the Bullet Club versus FTR and CM Punk. And that's how CM Punk exists for a bit on Collision. This is only 2 months ago, 3 months ago. Barely, 2.5. CM Punk works with the FTR. He works with the Bullet Club, works with Samoa Joe, has a great match with Ricky Starks, and feels like he's starting to build something on Collision. More so than anybody else, more so than the commentators, more so than anybody else on the show. CM Punk is the one guy who refers to himself as a Collision guy, who separates himself and the people on Collision from anybody else in AEW. He takes out the AEW championship that he left the company with, spray paints an X on it, and says this is the new AEW Real World Championship. No reference is ever made to the fact that MJF is the actual AEW champion. MJF is on the show with CM Punk. They don't interact at all. We don't talk about it. But eventually, we start to hear people talking again. We get probably 6 weeks of Collision without a huge amount of gossip until rumors start popping up that Hangman Page was sent home from Collision. He was flown out to do something at Collision, and then he was told not to come to the building. He was sent home. Head of Talent Relations, Christopher Daniels, was not allowed in Collisions, and it was not allowed at Collision. And you hear Dolph Ziggler's brother, Ryan Nemeth. There was a confrontation. He was thrown out of Collision. You're hearing all this stuff. We don't know if it's true. This is just what we're hearing, right? And it does seem like as you hear one story, it snowballs, and all these stories start to leak from the set of Collision. And then you hear this other one, and some of them are ridiculous. First time I heard this story, it was ridiculous. I said, what story even is this? They said, Jungle Boy, Jack Perry, he liked a tweet that was not nice to CM Punk. And you go, oh, he couldn't have done that. That's terrible. Twitter is ridiculous for wrestlers. I mean, it's one thing if it's good for business, like a lot of things, like if you're an entertainer and you're speaking publicly, if it's not going to further your business, why are we doing it? Just ego? I don't know. But I don't know. He likes to tweet whatever. He's friends with the Young Bucks, whatever. But the story is the Jungle Boy is going to take a week off. It's cleared. It's totally fine. But in order to explain his absence from television, he wants to take a bump on real glass. And it's cleared. It's totally good. But then CM Punk comes in because it's going to happen on Collision. And CM Punk says, we're not doing that. On Collision, you're not doing a bump on real glass. We don't use real glass here. It's dumb. We don't use real glass. Which honestly, in that instance, Punk is right. It's silly to use real glass on a wrestling show. Like, if you're an independent wrestling promotion and you want to do a spot with glass, but you can't afford movie glass or you don't know where to get it, I mean, do what you got to do. But if you're a television show, TV shows don't use glass. They use sugar glass. It makes sense. But there were rumors. They said, well, no, this is, what if it's just CM Punk doing this because he doesn't like Jungle Boy. And you're like, I don't know what we're even talking about anymore. He's telling the kid not to use real glass, right? So this story is out there. And by now, there's enough CM Punk gossip happening every single week that we've got our This Week in CM Punk segment on this podcast. So then Jungle Boy goes to All In, the biggest show AEW's ever done. He's working the pre-show. He does a fisherman suplex to Hook. They land on the windshield of a car. And Jungle Boy goes, real glass, cry me a river, right into the camera. And you go, oh boy, I know what he's talking about. He's talking about the internet stuff. Now look, in hindsight, Jungle Boy doing a spot on glass and then talking into camera, referencing dirt sheet reports of stuff that went down with him and CM Punk is about the dumbest thing you could do on the pre-show of AEW's biggest show they've ever done. You're on the pre-show. There's two things that you should be doing. Selling this rivalry with Hook and trying to get people to buy pay-per-views. That's the only reason the pre-show exists. Trying to get people to buy pay-per-views. Unless on that pay-per-view, you're going to do Jungle Boy versus CM Punk? Why the hell is Jungle Boy talking into camera about CM Punk? Again, how does that further business? And you might say the same thing. You might go, well, explain to me how CM Punk calling Adam Page a peg warmer after Collision goes off the air. How does that help business? It doesn't. That was a stupid thing to do as well. It's a little different because maybe we'll get to a place where we're going to get CM Punk versus Adam Page. If we could figure out how to do CM Punk versus Adam Page, it would be a huge match. Jungle Boy on the pre-show isn't Adam Page or CM Punk. It's a different deal. God bless the Jungle Boy. One day he will be. Not today, though. That's all I'm saying. But then it gets a little worse. So there's multiple different accounts of this. In the Wrestling Observer newsletter, Dave Meltzer did a good job of compiling 3 different stories. All the same story, but with different details. One was what is reportedly CM Punk's account. The other is what is reportedly Jungle Boy's account. And then a third account of somebody who was there, but doesn't have a horse in this race and is not a wrestler. So apparently, Jungle Boy comes back into gorilla position after his match. CM Punk is wrestling first against Samoa Joe at the pay-per-view. Jungle Boy is wrestling last on the pre-show. It's one after the other. Of course, they're going to cross paths. And apparently, the conversation is instigated with CM Punk saying, do you have a problem with me? After what he saw on the monitor watching Jungle Boy's match. And Jungle Boy either saying no or saying, you heard what I said, or I said what I said, or something was said. And it ends up getting physical. Depending on who you hear, CM Punk pushed Jungle Boy, or CM Punk pie-faced Jungle Boy, or fists were thrown, or whatever. But most accounts of what happened are CM Punk either shoved or pie-faced Jungle Boy. There was a brief altercation. CM Punk immediately put him in some kind of guillotine choke, and then Samoa Joe was there to break it up instantly. As were a bunch of other people. I suppose. I don't know. This is all coming from dirt sheets and rumor reports. Not one bit of that information was told to me by any firsthand account anywhere. So at that point, and I believe this has to have some truth to it because of what Tony Khan said in his statement, there are those that say CM Punk, in a fit of rage, lunged towards Tony Khan. Had some kind of physical lunge toward Tony Khan, the owner of the company. A monitor fell over where Tony Khan was, apparently. And CM Punk told him that he quit. Now, Samoa Joe tried to cool the situation off. They have to figure out how they're going to start this pay-per-view. The pay-per-view is about to start. It's AEW's biggest thing they've ever done. They're trying to figure out now the pay-per-view is a few minutes delayed. They're figuring out who they're going to get to go on first, that they can't get Punk out there. Samoa Joe gets everything cooled off, we do Samoa Joe versus CM Punk. Well, CM Punk and Samoa Joe are out there having a great match, by the way. I loved it. Jungle Boy he exits the building. If you look at that match, CM Punk beats Samoa Joe. He holds his title up in the air. And then he says goodbye to the audience, hard cam side, and salutes. And you go, oh, well, that means much more than I thought it meant when I first saw it. CM Punk exits the building, and the next thing we hear, the rumor mill is going crazy with what's happened. Immediately, somehow people find out that this all went down. Tony Khan at the media scrum says that there was an incident, that they have started an internal investigation, and that's all he can say about it until this weekend, Saturday, around 5 p.m., he issues a statement, and it said that they had released CM Punk from his deals. I guess he had a performer deal and an employee deal. I don't know exactly what he did in an employee capacity. Maybe he was a producer. Maybe he got one of the, executive roles that the Bucks had or whatever, but he had an employee deal and a wrestler deal. According to the statement, both were terminated for cause, is what the statement said. And then Tony Khan made a statement that aired before Collision on Saturday that said it was one of the hardest things that he's ever had to do, but referenced the fact that he's never been in a situation where he felt that his physical well-being in his life was threatened at a wrestling show, and that he nor anyone else that he works with should ever have to feel that way. He said he did this not only for the people involved in the situation, not only for him, but for every person that works both on camera and behind the scenes. This is what he had to do, and he apologized to the fan base that would be upset by this. But as he said,